Hey guys and gals, this is Otto. Welcome back. So, it's been a while. It's been a few weeks. Thanksgiving. Hope everyone had a good one. My wife and I traveled. We unfortunately had a death in the family also. And I've been sick for 3 weeks and we had to get through grad finals. So, it's been pretty crazy these last few weeks. But we're trying to get back on track. We've been getting a lot of stuff done. It's just kept us so busy we haven't been able to put anything out. So here we have the Crusader Industries Aries Ion. So something to note about this is that it is approximately 27 meters long, about 30 meters wide. I think those are the numbers. This is the only weapon on it, the only gun on it, which is a size 7 laser repeater of a sort. It has 30. It says it's 38 rounds a minute firing, so it's kind of slow. But they're saying it hits harder. So thinking like a sniper type gun. But it is a size 7, so it's huge. That's usually a capital class type weapon. Kind of curious how they got enough power into a ship this size to even fire this thing, but apparently they don't use much power. They probably use enough, but not a ton, because a ship this size is able to carry a gun this big. It's very surprising. I would have thought the capital guns would have taken way more power than a ship this size could carry. You would think that the power plants would be like huge, but guess not. Okay, so I get a kick out of this here. Violence is on the rise across the Empire. Outlaws are better equipped than we ever imagined, and the threat of pirate raids increases daily. Yeah, especially when you hand them ships that are labeled capital ship killers. We can find ourselves wondering where to turn. So yeah, I'm just like, you just handed every player pirate out there a ship for raiding, like hull A's, B's, C's, D's, E's, all of them. All the cargo ships now became like prime prey, because of ships like this here. So they're talking about pirate raids on the rise. Well, yeah, they're on the rise. Crusader just equipped them via SIG. So I'm just like, what? But we're going to debunk this whole capital ship killer a little bit. We're going to see where this goes. I'm going to share the logic with you, and you guys see what you think. So there's two of them. This is the Ion. I'll reload here. You can see it fire. Pew, pew, pew. Okay. And this is the Inferno. Okay. They're essentially the same ship, with the exception that the Inferno got the Gatling. Okay. It's more close range. Very high rate of fire, 1900 rounds a minute. The Ion got the slower, like sniper type, hits hard, fires slower. The only other difference is the Ion right here has got 3 shields, okay, 2 power supplies, and the Inferno got 2 shields, 1 power supply, because the Inferno doesn't need as much power to run this Gatling. Okay, so plus it says heavy armor, but it's actually misleading, because you have to actually watch the other videos that SIG put out, because they'll tell you that it's still a medium armor. It's just heavier armor than the Ions. Okay, it's not classified as actually a heavy armor. It's classified as a medium armor. So where this says heavy armor, that's very misleading. Okay, let's keep on going. Let's check this out.
In conjunction with Bering, we are currently crafting the most devastating size 7 mountable ship cannon ever devised. The SF-7, being prototyped in both ballistic and laser configurations, is specifically designed to incapacitate capital-class vessels. Of course, with a weapon so refined, the task at hand is to try and design an equally sophisticated ship to wield it. Even with this prototype, Crusader is up to the task.
Alright, so that's it. Oh, what do we got here? They're calling it an intimidating greatsword. Designed as the ultimate large ship hunter. Okay, here they call it a large ship hunter. In other places, they refer to it as capital. The mere presence of the Ares in your fleet will cause vehicles of any class to think twice before causing trouble. See, I'm not really sold on that either, and I'll explain to you guys why. I'm not really sold on the whole pitch of the Ares at all. And again, I'll explain why. But I think it's an interesting ship. It definitely fits Crusaders lineup, and I do like some of what Crusaders put out. I do own a A2 Hercules up in the banner there, so it's I'm a Crusader fan, but I'm not sold on this design, and I'll explain why. Let's see what else we got here. We'll get to the brochure in a minute. Okay, I'm actually going to go to these photos here, but I'm going to blow them up. So let's check out the pricing here. 195 War Bond, that is totally within the range of like Sabres and Hornets. Okay, regular starfighters, really. 220 standalone, that's like Banu Defender range. Okay, so it is totally within the normal ranges of starfighters. It is being referred to as a heavy fighter. So the first thing you should think about when they say heavy fighter is reduced maneuverability. Okay, increased defense, increased DPS. Okay, that's pretty much pretty foundational as soon as you jump to a heavy fighter. And they're priced the same here. 195 War Bonds. This is the Ember. It is the I guess the paint job variation version, and this is the Radiance. See, notice how it's gray. It's white and gray here. This one here is white and black. Down here with the Ember, it's black and gray. Here it's black on black. I personally like the black on black better. I think the Ember looks a little strange. I think it probably would have looked better to me if they would have made the main color across the nose and across the sides of the wings here black, and then made the back end gray. But it's that's what it is. They have a Sword of Fortitude pack here. You get 2 for $395, which is a savings. Excuse me. Okay, so that is the Aries. Let's jump over to these right here. Okay, here we have the Ion. I got some pretty good pictures of them. I really like this one here of the Aries. Inferno looks really good. I like the black and red coloring on it better than the other colors and stuff. But I tend to be a fan of the black and red coloring anyways. It's on the A2. I noticed it's kind of similar like that on the Carrack, which I really liked. So that's cool with me. I think those openings on the right and left of the cockpit are missiles, or maybe they're thrusters. I don't know. I thought maybe they were fixed missile launchers or something. I'm not sure. But you can see the fixed gun on the left side. Closer range, 1900 rounds a second. Okay, and here we have them flying in on an Idris. Flying into an Idris. They're pretty wide. I don't know how many of these you're going to be fitting on an Idris. Idrises really don't carry a lot of ships. You get a few ships in there and you're done. Because remember, an Idris is not really a carrier. It's a freighter. And so it only gets a couple ships. But these things are so big. I don't know that, too bad the Idris wasn't a full-fledged carrier that could actually carry, a half a dozen to a dozen of these. But still a good picture nonetheless. All right. And here we have the Inferno taking out tanks, which is interesting. But yeah, I'll get to it in a minute. You'll see why. Again, I don't believe these guns are going to be interchangeable. I don't think they're going to have other guns that are going to snap in unless they decide to do some major further building and art and stuff on these ships in the future. in order to give these ships some options with switch outs, but you know, it's not anything I see coming right away, if that even is something that comes up. I mean, look how long the nose on the Vanguard has been fixed for those 4 little guns on the nose. And we've not seen any variations for that come up. And it's a lot smaller and probably simpler than this. So I'm thinking that if you pick up an Inferno or an Ion, you pretty much have to just settle in that the gun that's on it is the one you get, and that's it. Which means, and it's kind of risky, guys, because if the thing has got any serious flaws in some way, you're stuck with it. Okay, you can't change the gun out. And that's not going to just affect the, you know, one gun that's like, oh, that gun's bad, we'll just swap it out. You know, and then we'll make the ship a little better, you know, for the ships that you can swap your weapons in and out. You can't do that with these. And so this to me should have been a ship that they went straight to flyable, because that was a straight to flyable is huge, because it really shows us what we're getting, what it can do, what it can't do. And I think they're probably still trying to flesh a lot of this stuff out. And I'll share some more with you a little bit later when we get there. And why I kind of laugh a little bit when they call this a capital ship killer. Okay, and here we have the Ion again, all lined up. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. I'm kind of curious, like, what are they landed on? What are they landed on right there that is holding 6 of them? Because that's a decent amount of heavy fighters. So, and it looks like they're lined up. So I'm kind of curious what that is. Okay, so let's go back over to here. Let's jump into the brochure. I thought I had that open. That's all good. Actually, I do right here. Okay. Let's see what we got here. High or long range deployment. Long range deployment, that was supposed to be the Vanguard. So now Crusader has jumped in on this. High velocity weaponry, we can get that. Ability to negate and disable capital class shields. That's really funny to me, because, and we don't know how this is going to go. Okay, this is just with what we currently know. Okay, if you've noticed the step up when you go from like the health. You know what? Let's go to let's jump back to this. Let's go here, and let's go to here, and then let's go to components. What do we got here? Power, defense. There we go. Let's click our shield matrix here. Okay, size 2s is what it's got, right? So let's just pull up. Okay, right here. This is on the Vanguard right here. Secure shield Vanguard. Health is 20,418, right? So if you take 2 of those, right, you're going to have 40,836. Okay, now imagine you have 3 of those, so that's 60,000 HP if they're running this shield, okay, on your Ion, all right? But now if you go down to, there's lots of shields here. You can see there's lower ones and there's higher ones, okay? And there's some recharge rates here as well. So you can see by these numbers here that they can get a fair amount of shields, but notice how much shield they have, okay? Now this is important because if you do your research and look around, you'll find that a size 7 gun should be putting out, it's an approximate, but it's about 1,600 to 2,400 DPS. Okay, 1,600 to 2,400. That's on the low and the higher side. Okay, now if it's putting out much higher than that, they totally went outside their norms. Okay, so we don't know what it's going to be because we don't have it. So in my head, I'm thinking 1,600 to 2,400 DPS. So if you take an average or a mean of that, okay, you're going to have about 2,000 DPS, and it's going to take you about 10 seconds to bust through this shield if you're firing straight through, and your gun doesn't overheat, okay? And you have power, right? A few variables in there to make sure all that happens. But that's one shield. That's not 2 or 3, okay? Because the Inferno has 2 with heavy armor. and the Ion has 3. Okay, and that's just taking this shield. That's not even getting into these ones that have 20-something, 30s, in the higher 20s, 30, 32, 38,000, right? So some of these, it could be quite a bit of a bear to get through that. Now, how many seconds is that going to take to get through it? Okay, and now let's go down here. And I brought it up because this here, Glacius, this is the 890J right here. Okay, this is a capital shield. Look at that. Look at that number. 774,000. That is a capital class shield. Okay, now the problem is that's not even the best capital class shield. Okay, that's an 890J. That is a yacht. Okay, that's a commercial grade capital yacht. That's not even a military grade shield built for war. Okay, so if you have a gun size 7 on a ship like the Aries and it's putting out, again, we're just going to stick with that, about 2,000 DPS, how long is it going to take to punch through that shield? And that's one, and they have more than one. Okay, so we've established they're not going to do it alone. Okay, right? Because if we do the math, if you take 774,000 right there divided by 2,000 per second, you're looking at 387 seconds divided by 60 equals 6.45 minutes. Okay, that's straight through firing and not running out of power or overheating. That's one shield. Odds are you're not going to be firing on the same shield the entire time. So we've just established you're not going to do it alone. So all the nonsense I've heard out there with people saying like one of these is strong versus blah, 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 I'm just like, no, it's not. You're not looking at the numbers. You're going to need a squadron, okay? A whole squadron of these in order to pounce on some of these big ships. And that's what's going to make it possible. Now, could one of these ships could potentially be nasty. If you are in a starfighter that is probably going to be more maneuverable, like a Gladius, an Arrow, a Sabre, even a Super Hornet, all those ships there that I listed are likely to be more maneuverable than this Ares. Because it's a heavy fighter, okay? And it has a big size 7 on it. It comes with a fair amount of missiles, some good size too. If you just mount size 5s on it, that's already up there where the Gladiator's at. And that's a bomber, right? And so it almost just pushed the Gladiator right out of the picture because it's coming with a massive cannon and potentially 4 size 5 missiles. And that's already right up there with the Gladiator. And so now I got to ask the question, why would you take the Gladiator over the Ares when the Ares has an awesome gun, far more shielding, better armor, 4 size 5 missiles, and a huge gun on it? So I'm kind of like, what did that just do to the Gladiator roll? Or what did that do for the Harbinger too? Because actually the Ares the DPS is probably going to be comparable. We're going to look at that in a minute. Okay? And so, yeah, this is a capital shield. Okay? Let's put it into perspective. So now we're going to come down here and look at, right here's the hammerhead. Okay? Look at that hammerhead. 90,000. Okay? Let's check that out. 90,000 divided by 2,000. 45 seconds straight. And that's if you're hitting the same shield. Odds are you're not. And that's if he's running stock shields and not some that's been changed out to something bigger or something that has been modified in the laboratory with, remember, back in the day, the Endeavor gets that big satellite thing on it for overclocking weapons and stuff. And I don't mean overclocking basically on the ship, but for modifying your ship parts. So potentially this shield could be even more than that. It could potentially hit, I'm thinking 100,000 or more, and that's just one face. So one of these is not going to be much of a serious threat to a hammerhead. Okay, it's going to take another group. And these are large shields. These are not capital now. And then once you get through the large shields, you're still going to have to get through the large grade armor. And one ship I thought about when I first checked out the Ares and stuff was um, the A2, the Hercules A2, because it has what is classified as heavy armor. And it's not a medium ship like this. It's a large ship, which means you get large grade armor. And it's classified as heavy. So I'm kind of curious to know, how does that heavy armor with the large shields hold up against something like this, right? And so this is going to be more maneuverable than those gunships. However, it's also more fragile. And I wouldn't really call a ship like this fragile, but when you compare it to a large class with large shields and heavy armor, a ship that is, as far as the A2 goes, Hercules, it's being sold as a gunship, a very strong one that they say can handle any situation, can go into any battlefield and be at home because that's what it was built for. So I'm really curious to see how this thing holds up against that. But all right, now let's move on to another interesting part here. Right here, we have a DPS calculator, right? So we're running off of the understanding that the size 7 gun is going to be about 2,000 DPS, one gun, right? Well, here we have a saber, right? I've equipped it with 4 Mantis GT 220s. Okay, it's putting out 1,920 DPS. That's about 2,000 DPS. So you got to ask yourself, what's the difference between a saber and a Ares, right? Whether you're taking the Inferno or the Ion. Well, for one, this thing is probably it's a medium grade. It's a small ship first off, okay, but it's classified as a medium fighter. I believe. I think it's a medium fighter. Yeah, it's not a light fighter. So it's a stealth fighter. But as far as starfighters go, okay, you get light, medium, heavy, right? So like the Vanguard is heavy, but the Sabre is medium, and like a Gladius or an Arrow is light. Okay, but now you've got 2,000 DPS. So what's the difference between me just flying this and flying the Aries? I believe the difference, okay, and remember, they referred to this thing back here. Let's go back here. Let's make sure we're pulling it up. Capital Ship Killer, right? So if this is going to have about 2,000 DPS, and here we are looking at our Sabre that has about 2,000 DPS, then how can the Aries be labeled a Capital Ship Killer if they're both putting out about the same DPS, right? How come we're not labeling every ship Capital Ship Killers? Okay? And the reason I say that is every ship that has a fairly within range of this DPS. And that's even some of your light fighters are only a hair under this DPS. Okay, you can pull up a Gladius that can put out like 14-ish 100 DPS, and it's a light fighter, very maneuverable, right? So maybe it's a Capital Ship Killer too. You just got to fly it well enough so that you don't get hit because it's a lot smaller and not going to be able to take as much damage. Well, we know a few of the differences. These are running smaller shields, right? And they have weaker armor. And their health pools are going to be smaller, right? So they're just squishier all the way around. But they're more maneuverable. I think what they're going to do is I believe this big size 7 has got some kind of penetration. Okay, that's what I'm going to call it. I think it's running some kind of penetration value that's higher than those other lightweight guns. Okay, and that is why it's going to be more effective against those bigger ships. It's not going to come back to the DPS. Sure, the DPS helps because we all know that if your DPS has to be higher than 0, right, in order to do damage at all. But we just looked at the Sabre and the Aries are likely to have similar DPS, then what's their difference? Why is one being called a Capital Ship Killer and one's just being called a Starfighter? I believe it's because this one is running the size 7 that's going to have a higher degree of penetration, not just for shields, okay, but for also penetrating their armor, which is going to be very strong. It's going to be large when we're talking about large ships, and it's going to be capital when we're talking about capital, but it's going to be of that caliber of armor. It's not going to be the lightweight, thin stuff that you can punch a hole through on these starfighters and like constellations and freelancers and stuff. Okay? It's going to be much beefier than that, and it's going to take a beefier gun to punch through those. I think that's where this thing is going to shine more than it will in the DPS department. Okay, not just this one, but also this one. Both Aries. Okay, I think they're going to shine more in penetration. Okay, being able to punch into that armor. Because if you remember a while back, well, years actually, when they brought up the Polaris is only going to be running large shields, just like the Caterpillar, just like the Carrack, okay, just like the Starfarers, pretty much all the larger ships that are running large shields. All their shields are the same. The difference is the Polaris is categorized as a official capital ship, okay, and it gets light capital armor. And they said that starfighters would be relatively ineffective against its armor. Okay, this was forever ago when it was going down through discussions and stuff going on around it with SIG and the Q&As and stuff and the videos they were putting out. They said it would be relatively ineffective because it's a capital class light armor. That's not going to be the problem for this guy right here. I believe that this guy right here and the Ion, they're going to be able to punch into that armor, okay, because they're running a capital class large grade gun that I believe is going to have better penetration. Okay, and so we'll see, but it's hard to discuss this stuff because sometimes SIG will change things and then it doesn't really get filtered all the way through the community for months or even a year or two later. And so this is going off of parts that were said before, along with parts that were going around the community now. And so stuff changes. And, you know, it's likely to be in flux, and we don't know how everything's going to finally be balanced out. And so sometimes even when you're putting down your money to support the development of this game, you have to keep in mind that you may have had your heart totally set on a Carrack with 1,000 SCU that was not delivered. Okay, and so you might even have felt like you were ripped off. But you have to remember that it is an alpha, it is in development, and unfortunately, things, I imagine, in their meetings and their discussions are going on from week to week and month to month. They could flip-flop all over the place. And there's nothing we can do about it. Okay? It's in development. They're going to change things. Unfortunately, many of us wish that they would be more on point with stuff. Don't promise something you're not going to fulfill. But that's not always the case. Even right now, they're talking about the BMM not delivering on its SCU. That really does not shine so great with some of the community. If you're gonna give us exacts when you put out a concept, then keep to it. It's part of your word actually having power. Otherwise, when you talk, it doesn't carry any weight because you've already broken the trust of the community. So it's kind of hard because it's like, well, you want to believe what they're saying about this concept, but then what parts do you not believe, right? How do we know which parts to believe and which parts not to believe if they can change whatever they want whenever they want, and we kind of just bite the bullet about it? And so just, take everything that comes out, every single concept, every email, every post on the RSI forums, okay, as take it with a grain of salt because you don't know how much of it is going to hold to or not. Okay, until they actually start fully fulfilling what they have promised in concept sales, like this right here is a concept sale, we'll see how much of this is actually delivered. Okay, because this stuff is subject to change. Okay, so let's go back over to our DPS, and here we have a Super Hornet. Super Hornet, and it was equipped with mass drivers and Manus GT220s. It's got just over 2,000 DPS, but it's in the same category as the Sabre. And so it's a medium starfighter. And so, it could have similar DPS as the Aries, but again, I believe the Aries is going to have more penetration because of that big old gun it's got on it. I really believe that's where it's going to shine the most. I don't think it's going to be the DPS is going to be like, oh my gosh, that's so big. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be, probably between 16 and 2400 DPS, and I think the biggest factor is it's going to have the punching power, the penetration, okay, to penetrate that higher grade armor and shields that those bigger ships have got. And as we already seen by showing you the 890J shield, you're not going to do it alone. You're going to have to take a big group. Okay, so now, and they've even called it that in one of the parts here. Where was it at? It's actually referred to as, it might actually be in the, brochure. Yeah, I think it's in the brochure. Where was that at? Right here. Yes. Okay, there's one here. Right here. Yeah, here's our 38 rounds per minute. Each shot effectively chips away at enemy shields. I mean, that's what all ships do when they hit a shield. Okay, your shield is going to get chipped away at. Devastating per round damage. So maybe because it's a prototype, they end up jacking up the DPS, right? It's possible. But right now, that's not been the norm. Okay, right now the norm has been, if you follow their studies out there, I don't really have one of them on hand right now to show you guys, or I would. But they've done there's a chart out there that's shown you, if you graph all the guns in the game and the size, you're going to see that what it does is it goes like from left to right. It runs pretty straight across, and then it starts curving upwards when you get into the higher size guns, like from size 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7. It starts curving up, and all the while it's tracking the DPS for each size. And the 1600 to 2400 falls within range of what a size 7 would typically be. So the only way you're going to be able to break that curve is if they go way outside their norm of what they've already done. So we'll see what happens. But where is it at? There's one here. It actually, okay, here's a 1900 rounds per minute. And again, it says expected rate of fire considering weapon design, okay? So it says expected, but you don't know if that's actually going to be what it is, okay? So I think that's probably about what they're shooting for. But there's one in here. Okay, here's the size here. Length 27.2 meters, width 30.2 meters. That's like comparable to... and notice the ion says armor medium. But notice here it says armor medium. But then it was still so conflicting because in the other part it said armor heavy. Heavy armor. See? So it's inconsistent. And this just says heavier than the ion. Okay, now it sounds like we're talking about the Medivac and the Apollo, because the Medivac has got better armor than the Apollo, right? But so you can't listen to the heavier armor in the other part. You have to actually watch this part here where you see they both are medium. This one probably just has more health, right? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's just going to have more health. So here we can see 2 coolers, 2 fuel tanks, 2 shield generators. This is the Inferno. The FS7B ballistic Gatling, 4 times S5 missile slots, 2 fixed slots times 4 size 3 missiles, 2 changeable slots times 4 size 3 missiles, and 4 times flare and chafe launchers. So it's got that many launchers, but I'm very curious to know how many times it can use its flare and chafes, because once this thing runs out of flare and chafes, it's probably going to be in pretty bad trouble, because it's going to be a bigger ship. You know, it's medium sized pretty much. It's about as big as the medium ships. Ships like the Freelancer and the Band of Defender and stuff like that. And it's got decent shields, but because it's heavy, it's probably going to have reduced maneuverability. We're thinking probably maneuverability that's a bit worse than a Super Hornet. Okay, and as far as starfighters go, you're pretty much at the bottom of the barrel at that point. Because as it is, the Super Hornet is kind of slow when it comes to even the Sabre, and even that's slow when you start talking about the Gladiuses and the arrows and stuff like that. So generally, the smaller the ship gets, the more maneuver it gets. The bigger it gets, the slower it gets. So this one's probably going to have slower maneuverability. But I didn't see it in here. I seen it earlier. I'm not exactly sure where it's at right here. It actually refers to the ship as a pack hunter. It might actually even be at the very top. I might have just slid right past it. Let's see if we can find it here. I did like here, like this, we need a next generation starfighter. So this was their answer. This is the next generation starfighter, kind of on the forefront, you know? And it makes sense because it is a prototype. The gun itself is a prototype. They tell you that. But I still get a kick out of that because all they're going to do is arm outlaws with this. Outlaws have extended their operations from industrial slums to illegal gunships patrolling the space lanes that fuel our economy. And criminal agencies have traded their planet-side bolt holes for the security of vast space yachts that can travel anywhere, anytime. Yes, space safety has increased leaps and bounds since the public was first permitted to fit offensive weaponry in combat and an increasing pirate threat. However, times have changed and another evolution is required. The citizens of UEE need something more. And so what they just did was they just gave all the pirates something more deadly. I just can't get over that. Yeah, I know it's called a starfighter, but it's still a heavy, and the heaviers are going to be slower and more sluggish. So anyhow, right there it is, Pack Hunter. Right there, Pack Hunter. Okay, so Sabre, it's a Pack Hunter. Okay, Hornet, it's a Pack Hunter. Any of these can be Pack Hunters. Okay, so unless these guns get some serious penetration, the DPS alone is not alone. The DPS alone is not what makes something a capital ship killer. Okay, and it's not a capital ship killer by itself. Any of these ships, you get enough Super Hornets punching away at a shield, you're going to destroy it, and one of them is going to tear down the hull enough and possibly blow it up, or even throw in a missile when it's weak enough. And then we're going to all start calling Super Hornets capital ship killers because it was a part of a group that happened to get the last shot. But these are all pack hunters. Here we have a Hurricane. Look at that, 24-26 DPS. 2 Predators, 4 Manuses, right? Pack Hunter, potential capital ship killer if it gets in those hits when it's low and it blows it up. But I think the difference is going to be, again, that size 7 has got penetration that these don't. Actually, this one might a little bit because it does have the Hurricane has got some decent sized guns on it, but okay, let's jump over here. And this is pushing it further. Here's a Constellation Andromeda. These are Pack Hunters. Okay? You can get a group of these together. Okay? And you can all hit the same target and blow it up. And we could potentially call these capital ship killers if you get enough of them together. Okay? And so the capital ship killer part, the Pack Hunter part, that's nothing new. So what's really going to be new is what they do with the ship. And they're going to have to do something special with those guns in order to make these things shine. Otherwise, they're not going to shine. They're going to fit in with every other ship we already have. Okay? The hull's a little bit different. It's got 1 big gun instead of 2 or 3 or 4, which is handicapped in the area of not being able to change it out. Okay? What many of us out there believe you're not going to be able to change it out. Okay? And so you're going to be stuck with it. However, something I thought about was I bet the overclock potential on those guns is going to be pretty nasty. I wouldn't even be surprised if that Ion, the sniper one, okay, not the Inferno with the Gatling, but the Ion hitting a starfighter, a regular starfighter with an overclock shot, maybe even a couple, because the overclock makes it fire faster, could potentially ruin a starfighter's day very quickly. I believe those things are going to be very frail compared to those guns. And that Gatling, I imagine you don't want to be in a starfighter and get into the crosshairs of that Gatling gun on that Inferno. I believe that is just going to wreck your day. So here we can see 2600 DPS, right? Over 100,000 damage with its missiles. Okay, that's why I picked the Andromeda, because I knew it had a lot of DPS sitting on it. But this is a medium ship. It's, and you get enough of these together and they can do some serious damage. And here we have the Vanguard Warden, right? And this has the Revenant on it, okay? Good sized gun. And then it's got these 4 fixed on it, right? And so I was kind of disappointed when I first seen the Aries because they were fixed guns again. I'm not a fan of fixed guns, and I'm not a fan of the what is it called? Auto gimbal, the aimbot. Not a fan. I've watched several videos online lately of people shooting stuff down with that auto gimbal. It's so boring to watch. It's just like, oh, just keep it in the circle. Shoot, 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 shoot. Boom. Okay, go crosshair the other one. Shoot, 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 shoot. Boom. Oh, it's so like dull. Not a fan. And this one has got mixed. I think that's really what killed it for me. I think it's what killed it for a lot of people. A lot of people, as soon as they even seen the Aries, they were already like, oh, my Vanguard's going. I seen a lot of that in org chat. Oh, there goes my Vanguard. And I don't blame them either. Because if you look at the missile setup on the Vanguard, and the Vanguard has got mixed guns, and we still can't change out these nose guns. Okay, we still can't make them even if they put a big ball gun or something right there, so that they would at least they could either all be fixed or all be gimbaled. And so it's mixed, and a lot of us don't like that mixed. It's actually the whole reason I've stayed away from the Vanguard. I had all of them. I owned all of them at one point, and I tried each one of them one by one and found that I could not stand the maneuverability with the fixed guns actually hitting something and then still trying to track something down with the gimbaled Revenant. And it was such a headache. I was just like, no, this mixed garbage is not for me. I just did not like it. So I got rid of them, and I've not picked them up since. I think having them mixed is worse than having them just fixed or gimbaled, one or the other. But yeah, it would have more DPS. Odds are it's going to have more DPS than this, and this is actually another heavy fighter. But I actually think what's happening is, in some ways, I think as SIG continues to develop ships and develops more and more and more, I think in some ways they're getting better. Not just that they're getting faster, but they're actually becoming more creative and better in providing a bit of a variety. However, I think sometimes maybe their newer designs are kind of walking on some of their older designs, so people are feeling a bit gypped. Because, yeah, I've heard tons of people say Vanguard's going in the trash if the Aries comes out and it ends up being decent. And if you look at them both on paper, the Aries looks way better than this Vanguard. So, I mean, heck, even the fancy titles they're giving it, Capital Ship Killer, Large Ship Hunter, Pack Hunter, either one of those, or either three of those kinds of words thrown around on a ship kind of diminishes how effective the Vanguard was going to be. The Vanguard was going to be a long-range fighter. I think just in a lot of ways it let too many people down, and now they see something like the Aries coming out, and they're looking to kick it out. So we'll see what happens, but I actually believe the Aries in stock trim, the way it's going to come out, is probably going to be better than the Vanguard. On paper, it already looks better, and we don't even know the DPS of the gun yet. But the missile loadout, the armor, the shields, I personally like that ship design better than the Vanguard. Styling is definitely a factor. A lot of people care about style, so we'll see what happens. But the Vanguard can potentially be a pack hunter, okay? It can also be a capital ship killer. If it gets in there and you get enough of them together pouncing on something, you could potentially destroy it. Actually, I just watched, I was watching a Twitch streamer just a few days ago, and he was out with a couple of org buddies, and him and several of his org buddies took on it was a small pirate group, about a half a dozen ships or so, and one of them was a hammerhead. And he was using auto gimbal in a Vanguard. Okay, he wasn't even shooting the MVSAs. He wasn't even shooting the 4 guns in the nose. He was only using the Revenant. And him and I think it was like 3 other buddies were all pouncing on that hammerhead. It was actually fun to watch, the overall group play of it. But watching him take out all the starfighters with the auto gimbal was very boring. But they group hunt, okay? They were a pack. And they hunted together, and they were focus firing, okay? And in the end, they ended up destroying the hammerhead through focus fire. And so that was a large ship with large shields. And so there you go. The Vanguard can obliterate hammerheads at this point. Now, we don't know what the final numbers are going to be. We don't know what the final numbers on the DPS of the guns will be, or the armor, or the shields. So maybe this stuff will totally change over the next year or two, when Squadron 42 launches at the potentially at the end of next year, and then Squadron or Star Citizen maybe a couple years after that. We'll see. But everything is subject to be different. But as of now, even the Vanguard can pack hunt. Everything can pack hunt. And everything can kill all the bigger ships too. You just have to have enough of them. Okay, and this is the last one I want to throw in here. It was the Glaive. The Glaive has got 2 size 5s. Okay, I would have liked to have seen something like the Crusader. The design of the ship itself is really sleek. I like that. But I would have liked to have seen maybe a gimbaled mount underneath its nose or something with 2 size 5s on it, right? Like this Glaive has. And then maybe like a turret or something on it. Maybe a couple other guns on it for straightforward shooting. Maybe some size 3s, maybe probably 4 size 3, 2 size 5s or something. Call it a heavy fighter. Leave the missile loadout the Crusader had. Something like that would have been great for those of us that everything's gimbaled, that like our starfighters, but we don't like the fixed guns. I owned the Glaive before. I was very disappointed in its maneuverability, and it's very difficult to hit something with it. Didn't care for it. But it's, again, look at that, almost 2,000 DPS. It too can pack hunt, and it too can kill the big ships. It's got size 5s on it, okay? That right there, you can punch into large and capital class ships, armor, shields with those right there. So all these ships that I've listed here, the Glaive, the Warden, the Andromeda, the Hurricane, the Super Hornet, and the Sabre can all pack hunt, can all kill large ships and potentially capitals too. You just got to get enough of them together. So what's really going to make these ships here shine is going to be what they do with these guns. Okay, are the guns going to be just the standard 1600 to 2400 DPS, which is what most of us are expecting? But also, are they going to come with some kind of penetration that enables them to penetrate that higher grade shields and armor to a better degree, or a better degree of efficiency than the smaller size 5s, size 4s, size 3 guns that so many other ships are running? I mean, how many other ships do we have out there? Like the Hammerhead's running size 4s on its starfighter guns, right? And I think like each of the ships from medium to large, I'm thinking about the Starfarer, I'm thinking about the Constellations, I'm thinking about the brochure that was on the Polaris, I'm thinking about the size of all these guns. None of them were this big. And I'm really kind of surprised. Often I'm thinking to myself, what are they thinking when they design these ships? Because we've had tons of other ships out there. None of them got ships guns this big. And they all could have, because they're all, several of them, not all of them, several of them are large and capital. And they were not given big guns like this. And then they finally bring out a big gun and they throw it on a starfighter. And so it's kind of like, what is the thinking here? Why are you not giving us good sized guns on these bigger ships? Why do we get a bunch of like large and capital ships with like size 3 and 4 guns on them? Maybe some 5s. Why are they not getting the bigger guns? And where is the whole lineup in the medium ships? Mediums by like Constellations and Apollo Medivacs and stuff like that. Ships about that size. The Freelancers and stuff too. Where are our size 6, 7, and 8 missiles? We've not seen those come out on anything. And so, yeah, this ship came out, and I had so much go through my head. But I was so busy with other stuff, as I explained in the beginning of the video, that I haven't had time to get back to it. So now I'm finally getting to this. And I'm still like, what in the world are they thinking when they're sitting in these meetings creating these ships? And I'm like, we have still so much other stuff that's never been covered. And they finally pull out a big scale gun. And instead of putting it on like a medium ship, right, with good size firepower, like a brawler ship or something, or even a large ship that's made for a brawling type, they throw it on a starfighter that's fixed. It's not even gimbaled, so you can actually fly for a lot of people that can't stand fixed. But it's an interesting design. I like the ship itself. I'm not a fan of the fixed. I did CCU an Ion and an Inferno just to see what happens with them. I know the Crusaders, Herculeses are coming out, I think maybe by 4.0, maybe by the middle of next year. And so I wanted to see what these things become. If they come out and they're pretty much similar to the kind of the output of what I found in the Vanguard, obviously I'm personally going to get rid of it. It seems like more of a specialized ship that maybe some people will love. However, I'm not interested. I'm looking for something that's more in line with what I enjoy playing, and a ship that is forced into a fixed gun position like this is not me. Um, unless it really shines. It's got to really shine in order for this thing to really work. And it's all going to happen in the gun because we've already seen the rest of the stats. The handling on the ship is definitely going to make a difference, but it is a heavy fighter. We don't expect it to be high-end handling. We expect it to be lower, but it's all on what they do with these guns. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, guys, that's my thoughts on the Crusader, and I like Crusader too. So, but we'll see what they finally give us with this gun. I am greatly concerned about it too. At the same time, I haven't really talked about it a lot throughout the rest of the video, but if the gun is too overpowered, it's going to be a massive pain in the verse, even to the point of being broken, and they're going to have to fix that. I am deeply concerned about the whole cargo industry with ships like this being put out there. And yet they've still not given us much in the range of medium and heavy, not heavy, medium and large ships like the Constellation, and ships like Starfarers and Hammerheads, and ships of that size, large. So medium to large ships with, a mix of size 4 through size 7 guns. And we still haven't seen, like I said, the 6, 7, 8 missiles. There's like a huge hole in the ships right now. And there's a few ships out there. They gave us the Nautilus, but the Nautilus is a mine layer with a big gun on it. A lot of us didn't like that. You mixed its role. Some of us would have loved a ship like that would have been like a gunship, minus the mines. Don't want the mines. Don't care about the mine play. It's a specialized ship. They could have put that out there in an industrial ship and left off the big gun. So I've not even looked at the Nautilus twice since its concept came out, because it's like a hybrid. It's got good. It's a large, right? It's got good armor on it. It's going to have the large shields and stuff on it. It's got good weaponry on it, and then they gave it this whole role of like doing things with mines. It was just like, gosh, that's awkward. Why didn't you just finish the whole build and do it out to be a brawler, a ship that has lower than expected DPS but greater than expected defense, or a more like a glass cannon where it would have had more DPS than expected but lower than expected defense, or even middle of the road. Give it exactly what was expected for D, exactly what was expected for guns. But yeah, so we got that one. We got the Hammerhead, but the Hammerhead is exclusively, it's a large size, which is great, but it's targeting at starfighters. That's what it's built for. Okay, as like a fleet screen. And so many of us are still looking for those medium to large ships that have the size 4, size 5 through size 7 guns on them. A few of them, and with decent size 4 through size 8 missiles and stuff on them, with the medium to heavy armor and the shields. And I'm still kind of scratching my head, for quite a while now, months in fact, maybe in a couple of years. Where's all this stuff coming from? When's it going to come in play? Because it seems like there's such a hole there still. But yeah, we know it's an alpha, and they can only do so much. And they're busy. They're busy every day. So, not saying they're not busy. They definitely are. But I like the ship design. We'll see what they give us. All right, guys. Like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next one.